Hi and welcome to a weekly review. This is Kim speaking on Monday, the 11th of September. So looking at the week ahead, I'm going to run through the fundamental data that's due out this week and also look at the technicals. Now, it's all about the pound this week, so I've started off with the pound here. And I say it's all about the pound. It's all about the pound because of the data coming out. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We've got pound data, so or data from the UK. So here goes. Let's actually run through the data before I get kicking in, so you fully appreciate what's going on there. Then we have on Tuesday, even today we've got very little out of any sorts. But we've got for the UK, we've got the CPI data, IPI, etc., inflation data basically coming out on Tuesday, which may flavour things on Thursday. We'll see, because on Thursday we've got the monetary policy the meeting, etc. So that actually we will see the result of that at 12 o'clock. But before then, we've got jobs on Wednesday, employment figures coming out on Wednesday. So by the time we've got inflation and employment, the guys at the central bank now will have a good clue of what's going on, what with the other data being released, and it'll be an interesting vote on Thursday, particularly to see if we end up as this 2-7 vote, or whether that will change. Bearing in mind the rate of inflation, I would expect, and it's expected to pick up to 2.8 this week. Average earnings inflation is continuing to lead away a little bit there towards 2.3%. So there is in the some sectors at least wage inflation kicking in there, and that's only likely to increase if the government take the 1% max off as well, so going forward. So that will put more inflationary pressure on. There are other figures which may stifle, and of course we can't forget Brexit, but because no one will let us. But aside of that, there are other numbers that have been released that may just stifle things for the Thursday meeting anyway. So there we go. So that's for the pound. Other data out this week affecting the markets. Some light data on for the Aussie there. Job openings in the US, not major data. Inflation on Wednesday for the US, which again can have a kicker back on towards the pound dollar, of course, but also the other dollar-backed currencies. Aussie dollar Thursday would be looking at the employment numbers again, significant. Looking at employment change and rate. I'm surprised they don't actually show so much in terms of the earnings there, but either way, big number for Thursday for the Aussie dollar. As I've already mentioned, the pound on at 12 o'clock there, and then inflation data coming out again for the US. This time, consumer price is coming through at 1:30 on Thursday, leading to Friday when we've got a speaker there. 9:50. Let's just check what he's talking about. Due to speak of the outlook of the UK economy. Okay, so that could be quite a mover. See how the markets move from that point of view at 9:50 on Friday. But certainly core retail sales in the afternoon. So and retail sales coming out more core is important there. That'll be key in the afternoon. That shouldn't be affected too much at the moment, but certainly next month I would expect the flooding and the hurricanes to have taken their toll on that. But for now, this should be mostly pre-floods, etc. So that's the key news out this week, and going back to the pound then and looking at it from a weekly perspective first, and we've managed to see the pivot swing that started last week continued through here into last week and pushed up it nearly back into the previous highs there from way back in July. Could be pushing up towards this weekly 100, and then there's a trend line that I've got drawn on from the higher time frames. In fact, you come out to the monthlies here, you see the trend line running across the top there. Probably not the best drawn trend line on from a weekly point of view, but you can see the potential resistance back into the 21s there on the monthly. But all the same, there's potential, and any sort of comments coming out from the bank on Thursday may may create or cause the pound to rally more, providing they're bullish, of course. Okay, that's pretty much the pound at the moment. Let's look at the euro dollar. Oops, sorry, come back to the weeklies there. In fact, I'll come back out to a month there, a monthly view, just to show you. Last week it managed to break through the monthly 50, closed just fractionally above it, and it's pushed up so far. Still has a bit of potential to push up. I say week, last month rather, and this month it pushed up rather, but still has some potential to continue in that vein. However, there is a bit of sort of divergence working its way into, has been working its way in, and is well edging. Actually, probably edged off a little bit now on the weekly perspective. I was looking at the dailies, and certainly there's arguably a bit of divergence there at the moment. There are some factors that may bring us up today, but it's quite key to see how we play if we get back below that weekly pivot. I would be a bit more bearish and be starting looking for the dailies, looking maybe back for the 21, 34 sort of zone as possible targets, particularly if we see the risk coming back on into the markets. We'll see the US dollar maybe strengthen a little bit. It's been helped obviously by no rockets being fired this weekend in North Korea. Okay, let's have a look at the dollar yen coming back out then. Going to take the big picture there. The month at the moment, it's well pushed out through lower bands there. It's still trending down pretty strongly from that perspective, not giving us too much more there. Quite a solid week down, but there's lots of the risk coming off the markets, and it's really seen that now. If, as I say, if things continue as they are at the moment, we could see a bit more of a bounce from where we are. We've sort of, it looks like it appears that we've gapped up a little bit. Just bring that to a daily for a moment. There's a bit of you can see from where it closed, there's a bit of a gap in some of these markets depending on which broker you're using, but there certainly is a small gaps in there, and it would be interesting to see if it can push up much further. It has got some pivots and etc. target wise above us, which may draw us draw it up a little bit further as it but at the moment it's still southward facing, but it depends on the risk. The risk changes, North Korea eases off and the talks start progressing. We could see this pushing up towards the upper band as we run through the week, so and beyond maybe. Okay, Aussie dollar. So Aussie dollar's got some possible data out later in the week. Let's start off here on the bigger picture first. I can get to the bigger picture here first and go on to the weeklies here. Actually, let's just run back out to the monthly there. You can see, well, monthly wise, it managed to break up eventually. It managed to break the monthly 50 there. A weekly perspective at the moment, there is a bit of divergence going on across the weeklies now. I think things may really sort of whether we can continue in this trend that's been started and been running across the weeklies here to the upside. We'll see as we run through, and particularly, as I said, if we come through into Wednesday. I beg your pardon. No, it's not. I've lost the data for that now. It's Thursday, sorry. So as we come back to Thursday, early morning, we may see a significant move either way in there. But for now, a bit of divergence, looking tad on the weak side. Shorter term as I come through, looking at these dailies, you just see that not a great bar in on Friday there. May see some continuation to the downside from that, but was at the moment just getting a bit of a bounce. Again, if it stays beyond above the weekly, well, it's erring more bullishness, and it's just into that R1 sort of pivot on the monthlies. It may want to push back up, and we could end up with light news just with chop going through. Canadian dollar. Just come out and look at the bigger picture first. It's really has taken out some trend lines here. Let's come to the monthly picture here, and you see the trend line that was sort of going across those prior lows there. It's taken that out now. It's just coming down towards its monthly 200, and well, it's a currency with the fundamentals have really changed and become quite positive in the main. And there was a surprise interest rate increase last week, which has pushed it down even further. And there is possibility that could continue in that mode, of course, or direction. Let's bring it back to the weeklies now. And well, again, there's arguments, and there's been arguments for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and possibly that it's been diverging. And yes, it was diverging, and yes, it was diverging, and yes, it's still diverging on a weekly picture. But it's a difficult one when it's in such with the fundamentals and everything else. It may just continue. It's possibly breaking this divergence as the longer it continues there. Just have a look at the dailies here. You see it's on the dailies. I've got the monthly pivots here. And you can see we're almost down to the monthly S3. We're not far off it, halfway down between S2 S3. Now there are some targets above the weekly pivots, etc., which we may, if any reversals, would see me expecting a move towards. But at the moment, it missed the weekly last week. It could just as easily, and this with this strength of the trend, the fundamentals continue to the downside. Be quite interesting. I've got the regression channels on here. If it was to come down, find some support into that S3 with the lower regression channel, it'll be interesting to see if we get a bounce off that. But as I say, at the moment, I'd rather be on the short side. Okay, that's pretty much it there. I'm going to have a quick look at gold. Let's go back and have a look at the monthlies. Now, gold has been pushing up put this pivot swing in over the last 3 months. This month it's pushed on and taken the top of that out there. There's probably no shocks to see it pushing up in terms of the risk that with the North Korean situation. The dollar's been hurt in terms of the floods and now the hurricanes. And well, we'll see if that continues. It's certainly going to be a lot of costs of occurred there in terms of rebuilding, and it may just see the dollar weaken further and gold as a safety element strengthen a little bit. But certainly over the weekend with North Korea again, it's come off a little bit, as you can see. And Friday may have been giving us a bit of a signal as it went into its monthly R1 there. A break below the daily 8s there would see me bearish, or more bearish, maybe on a bit more of a swing move downside, perhaps back to towards the monthly pivot. Really, I mean, it's a volatile one at the moment, and with the potential, as I say, with North Korea, it could change that very quickly. You see the sort of quite sharp up moves there, much bigger than the sort of down moves to date. But anything that gets sorted there may likewise see quite a retracement there as the risk comes or goes back on to the markets. Okay, that's pretty much it for me. Hope you have a great week. Bye for now.